Hello, I want to welcome you all into a year long journey of discovering the treasures of a beautiful book by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is a year long program where we will meet twice a month on Zoom video calls for women and men who are from the South Asian subcontinent and can be attended from any part of the globe. Reading this book is like being with a wise grandmother who knows the struggles of coming into womanhood and is teaching us how to thrive in the world. I would like to begin by sharing more about me and my growing up years. I grew up in a fairly conservative part of northern India, a small town called Ambala in Haryana. Growing up, it was difficult to find women role models whom I could identify with easily. The main archetypes I saw were women who were highly domesticated. Women who had little power in their relationships and life, were shy of sharing their opinions, and I saw them being labeled as nice women. Their main assets were their physical beauty and agreeability. I also saw another archetype of intellectual women who did excellent academically and had more power over their lives. However, I saw that the identity of women deeply depended on the men in their lives. I rarely saw women who loved what they did, were aligned with their truest being, and were living powerfully in their relationships and not living lives by what will people say, log kya kahenge, intrinsically and in the outside world. Bollywood had a big influence in the lives of old and young in India. However, now that I look back, the most popular movies when I was growing up, like Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, where the heroine had little power over her own life and was at the mercy of the patriarchy in the society. I now wonder what made her a true heroine, and when her main aspiration in life was just to find a male. Meaningful mainstream movies such as Pink and Queen, which we are seeing now, which show women without men in powerful roles, were rare. As a thin, shy brown girl growing up in a society which attributed fairness to beauty, I grew up having a strong awareness that I was not traditionally pretty. However, I had a mind of my own and yearning for independence. From as far as I remember, I devoured non academic books, from the adventures of Enid Blyton, Roald Dahl, and to even books which I now consider highly patriarchal, such as Pride and Prejudice and Little Women. I did badly all through my primary years of schooling, since I was simply not inspired by school and learning by rote. I found books such as Swami and Friends by R.K. Narayan highly relatable to how much I disliked going to school and could not wait for summer holidays to begin, and absolutely loved the book Danny, the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl, a child who lived in a gypsy caravan, which was something close to my heart. My love for reading helped me in middle school as could understand books on my own, and I realized I could be an above average student with minimal studying. However, my thirst for independence and living a life I could call my own made me throw myself into books all day long in high school, even though I did not know what is it that I wanted to do with my life. Trying to beat an oppressive system such as the Indian education system, where one is not encouraged to deeply understand and question and be creative, took its toll on me, and I became highly underconfident of my abilities and doubtful of my own intelligence. I would also like to share with you more about the previous generation that I saw. My mother grew up in even more difficult times where dancing and singing was not tolerated in her family, and she had to give up wearing dresses and wear traditional Indian dresses when she became a teenager. I also heard from my grandmom's sister that her parents would disapprove of her reading novels, and she had to do it in secret. One of my aunt was discouraged from pursuing medicine since that might result in her getting thicker glasses, which might result her in not being so attractive in the groom market. Post partition, the women did not grow up in the times where sati was performed, but it was so out and obvious that their standing in the society depended on their husbands. An uncle who was respected by my family, would openly say that a man's salary and a woman's beauty are the most valued possession in these times and in his times and even in today's. Both my grandmoms lived their lives wearing white saris when the husbands passed away and shied away from wearing any colored clothes, especially red, which now sounds outrageous to me. To continue my life journey, I went on to pursue my engineering from one of the top schools of India, And though I was aware that it was not my passion, the desire to see the world and be independent later kept me on the journey and later brought me to USA to pursue masters in Stanford, which after which I took up a job as a software engineer at Google and now at Apple. Even after all these academic accolades, I felt extremely underconfident as a person. I was struggling in the rigors of a 9 to 5 job, which I did not feel passionate about, and struggling in relationships, feeling powerless, confused, and taken advantage of. I could not even stand up for myself when I was hurt and felt at the mercy of the ups and downs of life. One of the things I discovered amidst all this chaos was that I love hiking and camping and that it truly made me feel alive. I was also exploring different spiritual practices and found the tradition of the Buddhist meditation, Vipassana, helping me with my inner life. I also found help from women who had their instincts alive and who would guide me into finding my own voice. Amidst a particularly stormy relationship, I found a wise woman who was not living the typical Silicon Valley life, who was so warm and affectionate, yet so fierce, who could truly empathize with me, and she touched me deeply, and I felt instant kinship. I also found a friend who had walked the Narmada pilgrimage for months, and another woman who had a profound experience while doing the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage. These journeys inspired me to take a 3 month sabbatical from work where wanted to spend a major chunk of my time doing the Camino. My friends and family were not sure of what I'm doing, discouraged me from going alone, but I was very sure that I needed to do this alone. One of my elderly uncle also said that he wished for me to do such things after I get married, and Aunt sympathized with me that since she could not imagine it being fun alone. I had no words to explain how excited I was for this journey of mine. I spent more than a month walking the Camino de Santiago, walking almost 20 to 25 kilometers every day. I was having an experience of such contentment and joy which I had barely ever experienced before. I had intentions of making it a pilgrimage and not just a hike. It was a solo walk where I was drinking in the beauty of Mother Earth and surrendering each day in its lap, practicing generosity in small ways I can, and connecting to people and listening to their stories. I was walking in rain and sunshine, through mountains and forests, farms and cities, and experienced such connection and generosity from strangers which I usually starve for in my city life. I would usually walk alone during the day and join a group for dinner, sharing the stories of our lives. Each story was touching, each story was inspiring. After finishing the walk, I spent time with my family in India on a meditation retreat with a dear friend and traveling to the highest part of Himalayas, a part which was so wild and pristine that I'd felt that I'd touch aliveness and groundedness in me which I'd never experienced before. I ended the sabbatical with a feeling of being so strongly in my body and glowing with confidence as I had never experienced before. Coming back to the Silicon Valley and amidst people living corporate lives where being busy is a state of being, I could strongly sense lack of luster in people. I also was losing the wild women in me as I got busy in the normal humdrum of life, which was very painful for me to experience. It also created a yearning to experience the wildness in my being again and to live life in my power. I've learned that to be in your power is not to be forceful, manipulative, or aggressive. To be in your power is to be in alignment with your truth and values. It is after the sabbatical that one of my friends told me about Dr. Clarissa Estes' book, and I felt a deep resonance with the teachings in the book. I have come so far in this journey of exploring the wild woman in me, and I want to travel more distance together in the company of collective wisdom, touching into our authenticity, humility, and groundedness. Dr. Clarissa starts the book with saying how wild women and wildlife are endangered species and how they're causal. She talks of wild does not mean out of control, but it means to live a natural life with deep integrity and healthy boundaries. She describes the qualities of wild as being loyal, strong life force, life giving, intuitive, and alert. The wild woman is highly instinctive in nature. She resides in the gut and not in the head. One inference I have of that statement is that a wild woman trusts her intuition. Gut being a place where one can feel the intuition arise instead of her head, which points to rational thinking, and where we often hear the voice of the society. In the book, Dr. Clarissa describes intuition as the voice of the soul, which is the inner compass as we go through life and makes life choices which will cause the least amount of fragmentation in the psyche. She knows right from wrong and knows how to be in the world. Dr. Estes talks of story as medicines, stories which work with the subconscious and set the inner life into motion. Each chapter of the book starts with a story and then draws out the meaning of each character as forces, both positive and negative, which exist in our psyche alongside forces in the external world. These stories, curated by Dr. Estes, have the power to repair or reclaim that part of the individual that has been lost to the pain of living. Dr. Estes also talks of how we must strive to allow our souls to grow in their natural way. The book asks for earnest effort in this direction, since it often requires going against the collective consciousness of our society. It also asks for healthy self confidence, since it requires standing one's own ground, since the soul's voice often goes against the beliefs of the society. This book is not only for women but also for men who have lost their instinctual self, for those souls who overstay in bad relationships or unsatisfying careers, because either they have lost consciousness that something is wrong or lost the power to make a change. The teachings are one of the antidote to the lack of luster and aliveness we feel in our current busy lives. Another intention I have for our group is that we can explore and learn from our own Indian myths, from the lives of Indian goddesses, from goddess Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, Parvati, and Kali, and their legends, and so also from our own myths, such as women in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, whose wisdom is much needed to guide our current lives, where destruction of nature and starvation of inner life is at its peak. The book is a deeply spiritual book which requires undivided attention, a lot of reading and rereading, and a deep commitment to explore its truth. And hence, I was inspired to create a year long program which will provide a platform to learn from each other. This book is not just for elite educated men and women, but for men and women everywhere. Since this is an online program, I deeply regret that those with no access to internet or understanding of English language will not be able to join us. I wish that the translation of this book existed in Indian languages, but it could not be found. The closest words I could find to women who run with the wolves in the Indian vocabulary is Jugni, which means the female firefly. In spiritual poetry, Jugni means the spirit of life or essence of life. Another word which reminds me of the wild women essence is Pataka Guddi, made famous by the song of the same name by A.R. Rahman. May the collective wisdom of this group help in liberation of all beings everywhere. I would like to close with the words from the book. The doors to the world of the wild self are few but precious. If you yearn for a deeper life, a full life, a sane life, that is a door. If you love the sky and the water so much that you almost cannot bear it, that is a door. If you have a deep scar, that is a door. If you have an old story, that is a door. Thank you for listening.